Thank you. Thank you all, and welcome to this World University Summit. Today, this evening, well, it's morning, I believe, for some of our guests, and afternoon, and good evening. And I believe, as my colleagues were discussing, it's fairly cold in Canada, and it's extremely warm and quite cold in other parts of the world as well. But it's extremely warm in Delhi. On that note, let me welcome all my speakers, Professor KUZMAROV, Mr. Riley, Professor RESTA, and Mr. MALKANI to this session. The session is entitled Scholars Without Borders, the Role of Universities in Building Global Partnerships for Peace and Prosperity. Well, I think this is an extremely important topic and timely topic for that matter. As we know that universities play a crucial role in bridging the gaps that boundaries may pose. When there are major issues concerning governance, peace, and prosperity, universities provide the intellectual space in bringing about tangible changes. And those endeavors, I believe, may create a more prosperous global order. This session will discuss about the pivotal role that universities play in building global partnerships for fostering long-lasting peace and prosperity around the globe. So without further ado, I would now request all my speakers and co-panelists to share their opening remarks about what they feel and what is their take on how universities, in what manner universities can play a pivotal role in bringing much desired global prosperity and peace. If I may start with Professor KUZMAROV, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and good evening or good morning or good afternoon, wherever you may be. My name is Dr. BETINA KUZMAROV, and I'm the Associate Vice President International at Carleton University in Ottawa, Ontario. And I'd like to take a moment just to thank the organizing committee for all their hard work in putting this summit together and for welcoming me with such enthusiasm. I'd also like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you as an honored guest with you from unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory on which we work, study, and play here in Ottawa. I'd also like to say a quick hello to my fellow panelists. This is my second time participating in the World University Summit, and I look forward to a really engaging and insightful conversation. I'd like to situate my comments today just in my location, which is at Carleton University, and we are an interdisciplinary, research-intensive, comprehensive university with a strong international focus. We're located in a G7 capital, Ottawa, and we enjoy close proximity to various embassies and high commissions, and as well strong ties to the public sector based here in Ottawa. With a comprehensive approach to outreach, we believe in the immense value of co-creating bridges and seeking partnerships with international universities. We want to see Carleton as a global hub of intellectual engagement. However, the world is grappling with escalating geopolitical tensions and other crises, and the higher education sector grows increasingly more important in that conversation. Universities have a responsibility to encourage responsible dialogue and educated debate, as well as facilitating cross-cultural understandings. At Carleton, this commitment is underlined in our strategic plan, which flows out of a larger strategic integrated plan, and its core mission is to serve Ottawa and serve the world. From research funding to mobility programs, student exchanges, joint degrees, community initiatives, as well as diplomatic engagements, this plan sets a clear pathway to understanding our international impact, as well as to support our faculty, staff, and students to participate as global citizens and engage with the world. We're preparing to renew our strategic plan, which is designed to take us into 2025, and we're turning to the UN's Sustainable Development Goals for guidance as they provide a compelling framework to illustrate how we can actually measure, and I know this was one of the questions, our tools of international engagement and collaboration in research and engagement. We're fostering our partnerships and pooling our resources and expertise to enable us to co-create responses to shared global challenges, whether that's meaningful responses to humanitarian crises. For example, we're sponsoring a project with the WHO on pop-up mobile medical clinics. as well as other core world issues, including health, climate change, and cybersecurity, which we'll reflect on more, I think, in the dialogue. We're committed to ensuring that our community reflects the diversity of the world, as well as the diversity of Canada itself. We now have over 4,200 international undergraduate and graduate students from 142 different countries. We also welcome a number of visiting scholars to our campus. This past year, we had a pleasure of hosting 177 researchers. We know that universities should be seen as a safe space and as part of our responsible development ecosystem, where people of various backgrounds can come together to share their experiences and learn from different perspectives. This type of environment can cultivate a culture of empathy, mutual respect, and an appreciation of diversity. By nurturing these values, universities can play a pivotal role in promoting peaceful coexistence amongst global communities. As we move forward, strengthening our international linkages is a collective priority, and we intend to do that through a research-driven strategy. Only then will we be prepared for the next set of challenges that may come our way. This summit is always a perfect example of this, putting into practice these conversations. And once again, thank you for the opportunity to participate today. I look forward to hearing from my panelists and colleagues and to discussing this important topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor KUZMAROV, for those opening remarks. Indeed, it is extremely important for internationalization and to create that space where students, faculty members can connect, and universities do provide that space. And thank you very much for enlightening us about the wonderful work that Carleton University is doing. On that note, if I may now move on to Mr. Riley for his opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Gupta. I would also like to thank the organisers of this conference for the invitation to participate. I'm really delighted to have this opportunity and acknowledge the work of OP Jindal more broadly and the partnerships that it is forging, both domestically but also particularly internationally. I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about ACU. Just to give you a little bit of context, ACU is a Catholic university, but is a little peculiar in that we are also a publicly funded university. So we are not a private institution, but we are a public university based in Australia. We have 7 campuses altogether. We have approximately 35,000 students across those campuses, of whom about 5,000 are international students from over 110 different countries. The university is reasonably comprehensive, but not completely comprehensive. So we have 4 faculties, and we focus largely on teacher education, on arts and sciences, on health and health and allied health practice. We also focus on the areas of law and business, and we also offer programs in the areas of theology and philosophy, which align with our identity as a Catholic university. I guess what I wanted to do was 2 things in these introductory notes, and that is, I guess, talk about how we, encapsulate and how we interpret our responsibility as a Catholic university, and what that means then, and how that's articulated as a global institution as well. So I wanted to draw in particular on a document called Ex Corde Ecclesiae, which is a document which basically underpins the nature of Catholic universities worldwide. So there's 1,500 of us approximately around the globe, and we all ascribe to these words. And that is that the basic mission of a university is a continuous quest for truth through research and the preservation of knowledge for a good society. Including amongst its research activities, therefore, will be a study of serious contemporary problems in areas such as the dignity of human life, the promotion of justice for all, the quality of personal and family life, the protection of nature, the search for peace and political stability. The encyclical also goes quite a long way further, and it talks about the specific roles that Catholic universities have and the responsibilities that we have to help to promote the development of emerging nations. So we actually have a very strong focus around that element. And at ACU, we particularly enshrine that in the work that we do through our community engagement activities, as well as through our research activities and our teaching. So if you like, we have a 3-pronged approach to the work that we do, both globally and domestically. In the global context, like Carleton, we're actually going through a bit of a refresh of our strategic plan. So we are, in fact, today we launched yesterday I should say, because it's 1 o'clock in the morning here, we launched Global Connection Vision 2033. So in Vision 2033, we focus on the global connection for ACU. And in that, we specifically state that ACU's international profile reflects the global objectives of the university across education, research, and engagement. We also go further and say that intercultural competence is woven into our activities and supports our reputation as a welcoming and inspiring destination for international students. And we also develop globally engaged learners equipped to thrive and lead in an interconnected world and provide opportunities for both staff and students to gain international experience through mobility, exchange programs, and virtual collaboration to learn from and work alongside members of the global community. So we've made a very, very firm commitment to the global identity of the university. We draw on our identity as a Catholic university, but we also draw on our identity as a university more broadly. And of course, I'm a firm believer, as is the university, that the term university in and of itself talks of universality. It talks of the global context. It talks of the universality of engagement and the work that we do. So we see that as being very, very critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Riley, for those wonderful comments. And it's great to know about the structured approach that ACU is following. And as you've rightly said, the universities around the world speak a common language. I think it is time to revisit that common language to bring about that peace and prosperity. Thank you very much. So if I may now request Professor RESTA for his comments, opening remarks, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Gupta. Thank you so much also to the organizer of this wonderful conference. My name is GIORGIO RESTA, and I'm Vice President for International Affairs at Roma Tre University, a public institution located in Rome, with 13 departments and 35,000 students, more or less. We are deeply committed to generally to the intercultural exchange. So we really trust this mission of universities, which is reflected in the title of our session. Let me start by a short remark about the history of university. As a typical institution which was formed in Europe, namely in Bologna, at about 1,000 years ago. So at that time, when the first faculty of law was formed, the faculty of law was the first one, students came from all over Europe to learn from professors who were teaching some sort of law based on the reason, the old Roman law. And these students came to their own countries with teachings that opened the mind to the law of reason, so to say. So it was a typically transnational endeavor, and it was the basis of a transnational community of people who recognized themselves in some values of respect of reason, rational decision-making, and the values of the person. And this idea of university, which is typical as a transnational institution, remained intact as probably one of the main systems which were created in medieval Europe. But today, the challenges that universities face all over the world are extremely serious. We have heard from climate change to political instability, from pandemics to the urgent need for technological adaptation. Our institutions in this new context stand not just as bastions of learning and research, but as vital bridges across cultures, disciplines, and borders. In particular, I think that the mission of academia is the cornerstone upon which we can build a more peaceful and prosperous world. This mission obligates us to transcend our local and national boundaries, to engage in and promote international cooperation. Our scholars trained in diverse disciplines, yet speaking the universal language of inquiry and evidence, embody the potential to bridge worlds, as it was in the past. At Roma Tre University, we are deeply committed to this vision, We believe in the power of global partnership to enrich education, to enhance research, and to forge pathways to peace and prosperity. Through exchange programs, collaborative research initiatives, and joint academic ventures, we strive to bring down the walls that divide us. The question before us is not whether university can play a role in building a more internet-connected and harmonious world, because the evidence of our potential is overwhelming. The real question is how we can amplify our impact, how we can leverage our collective intellectual capital more effectively for the greater good. To this end, I think that we must prioritize the facilitation of cross-cultural understanding and promote intercultural dialogue. We must ensure that our campuses are microcosmos of the world we wish to see, diverse, inclusive, and harmonious. Our academic and research partnership should not only cross borders, but should also break new ground in addressing the global challenges that confront us. In conclusion, the visions of Scholars Without Borders is not a mere ideal. It is embedded in the history of universities, and at the same time, it is a roadmap for action. It calls upon us to use our knowledge, our networks, and our passion for education to foster peace and prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Resta. I think it's so very important to visit our past to understand our present, to make our future better. And thank you for reminding us, the ancient university structure. In fact, I was remembering India's Nalanda and Takshashila and the values those universities had actually brought around that time. On that note, if I may now request Mr. Malkani to share his opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Gupta, and thank you also to colleagues across Jindal Global University for including us in today's session. Just like our colleagues at Carleton University, we too have been part of this World University Summit before, and indeed, two senior colleagues will be on panels later today and tomorrow as well. So we really welcome this opportunity to be part of the discourse, and as an organization with very deep ties with Jindal Global University, we are very grateful for this opportunity. So a little bit about the Association of Commonwealth Universities, where I serve as the Regional Director for Membership in the Asia Pacific. We're the other ACU on this panel, not the Australian Catholic University, but the Association of Commonwealth Universities. We're the world's first and oldest international university association. Today, a network of over 440 member universities across 42 Commonwealth countries. We have the unique distinction, colleagues, of having about 2/3 of our membership in low and middle income countries, and therefore are extremely well placed really to act as interlocutors between what's popularly known as the Global North and the Global South. And indeed, a lot of our work in support of our mission is indeed to help make the world a better place through higher education. We do this by bringing universities together and supporting our member universities in not just fulfilling their mandates, but indeed in fulfilling their missions altogether. We run a program of grants, of fellowships, of scholarships, which support a range of different collaborations, all of them international. So ranging from initiatives such as gender grants to early career researcher grants to grants in support of projects that aid the development of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, to peace and reconciliation grants, to climate resilient grants, and a whole other range of grants. As I said, all in support of bringing academics, bringing professional services staff, and bringing students together. We run also a range of different initiatives in support of international collaboration. And inherently, this is a personal view, but certainly is also the view of the ACU, which is that all people are inherently good, but it's really just fear and insecurity that propagates division in most cases. And therefore, it really is incumbent upon us, and I say this, us as the Association of Commonwealth Universities, but also others in the room really, to use our international connections, to use the privilege of our education, as well as our values to bring people together and to bust some of these myths that actually sow division instead of unity. So, on that note, I'm really looking forward to the conversation today. I don't want to meander into a longer introduction because I'm looking forward very much to hearing what the other panelists have to say, and also indeed the Q&A that will follow. But in brief, we are an international organization in every facet of our being, and we really exist to support universities and to help universities what they do what they do better. So back to you, Professor Gupta.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Malkani. I mean, in fact, I'm a great fan of the work that you're doing as a part of the Association of Commonwealth Universities. You are bringing universities together. It's a fantastic, work, and all kudos to you. As we have now understood that where universities stand in terms of the projects, in terms of the work that they're doing, or be it the Association of Commonwealth Universities. Now let's dive a bit further, and let me pose my first question, if I may, to understand more about what universities further can. And if I may pose this question to all of you, and please feel free. Universities, I mean, we have talked about universities are highly valued for their intellectual capital. How can this intellectual capital be leveraged to counteract misinformation and propaganda, fostering a more nuanced and informed global discourse for peace? So I can follow the same order. Professor KUZMAROV, if I may start with you, please. Thank you.
So I think there's really two different ways that we look at this, I think, at Carleton University. And I say this both from the academic side and from the international outreach side of things. One is that our role at universities is to bring better information, data, and knowledge to the public. So in other words, knowledge dissemination, sharing what it is that we're working on so that we make it public and visible what we do. The second thing is that Carleton has a long history of interdisciplinarity and looking at challenges from multiple perspectives. And I'll talk about a few of them over the course of this conversation, but I'll focus on one right now, which is we have an interdisciplinary program, for example, on migration and diaspora studies. And what that program does is take people from across the university and offer them programming in a range of issues surrounding one of our global challenges right now, which is obviously human migration, whether that is forced migration, whether that's economic migration, and actually interrogating it from a wide variety of viewpoints. So I think there's two different angles to this. One is our responsibility as good citizens of the world to share what it is that we're working on in an accessible way. And we really make that a priority as well, outreach. Because of the unique structure of Carleton and its history, we were formed at the end of World War II to serve returning GIs from the war. We've always had a history of public outreach and engagement. That means that we see part of our role as influencing policymakers, the public, and sharing the things that we're doing through academic research. But the other piece to that is how we do it. And I think part of that is the challenges we're facing right now are global in scope. They are not, you can't look at them through silos. They are multi-pronged and multifaceted. And so I'll just give you an example. We have a research project called the Local Engagement Refugee Research Network, where a team of researchers promote the protection of solutions for refugees. And what they do is they actually work with refugees around the world to provide that firsthand knowledge and accounts for how Canada is shaping its refugee policy. So in other words, we're not making policy in a vacuum without listening to the voices of the people who are actually impacted by the work that we're intending to do. And we also do that, the same professor who does that is co-chair of the Global Academic Interdisciplinary Network, which is through UNESCO, and works to advance the international effort that higher education can take in response to displacement. So in other words, it's operating from both angles, listening from the people most affected from below, but also influencing the policy makers up to the global scale. And I think that really speaks to what universities can and should do when addressing these global challenges, including discord, misinformation, conflict, which of course refugees are one consequence of some of these situations. So I'm going to stop there, but I think there's more we'll say throughout the other questions as well.
I think these are extremely important points that you raised about the importance of following multi-pronged approach. And I think the idea is to bring about that transparency. In fact, universities should create that ambience for professors to work on different areas. And that kind of environment can be created by university, that free environment where intellectual discourse can happen. So on that note, if I may request Mr. Riley to share his comments. Thank you.
At Australian Catholic University, we are very committed to encouraging our staff to engage in active public discourse. We believe that the role of a university is very much a public role. It's critical that our teaching staff, our academic staff, have the freedom to engage with the media, to engage through social media, to comment particularly in areas of expertise. And particularly, I guess, we see their role as clarifying and informing people's thinking and providing evidence to support their assertions as well. It's that academic rigor which is absolutely critical and is often missing in terms of misinformation. We also look at it, I guess, through the work of individuals, as well as looking at it through the eyes of consortia and different opportunities that we also offer. So, for example, one of our professors, Professor Ben Moffat, specifically researches into populism, democracy theory, contemporary political theory, and populism in the global context. So he's a very active researcher who's looking very specifically at the different factors that are informing and creating the current situation, that are creating, I guess, and elevating populism, that are driving, to a certain extent, misinformation, both within the public but also in the private context. So we've got individual academics like him who are working specifically on these, but working often in collaboration with colleagues overseas and drawing on the global context, looking at the context not only within Australia, but looking to countries like the United States, or looking to Pakistan, or looking to other countries to see what the points of conjunction might be. I guess the other thing we do too is we do look at consortia approach, particularly in relation to developing our young and up-and-coming academic staff. So really, we're talking about training our high degree by research students and supporting them. So one example of that, and one example, I guess, of a really successful global collaboration, is in the area of contemporary humanism, where we work with a group of colleagues, including Università LUMSA, the Pontifical Catholic University of Chile, the Catholic University of Lyon, the Catholic University of Portugal, and the Institut Catholique de Paris. So with those institutions, we not only conduct seminars on a regular basis, generally on an annual cycle, but we also run a series of co-tutelle arrangements whereby our students have, say at ACU, the opportunity to undertake their doctoral program not only at ACU, but also at one of our partner institutions, one of the other partners in that particular network of institutions. So that particular program is it's international and interdisciplinary in structure. It aims to provide an adequate context, not only for an integrated humanistic approach, but also for an integral education of students through a contamination of styles and methods of research and teaching beyond the disciplinary and beyond national boundaries. So we see that as also a way to broadly share the work that we're doing in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riley, for highlighting some of the projects that Australian Catholic University is actually working on. And it's quite refreshing to listen to you about the areas that professors are working on. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. On that note, if I may now request Professor Resta to share his comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I will be very, very short since I totally agree with the assumptions which has been made by the previous speakers. I think that we have two keywords to answer your question. One is the social impact of university. The second one is the interdisciplinary endeavor. I think that leveraging intellectual capital against misinformation involves the dissemination of accurate, research-based information and the promotion of critical thinking skills. And as I said before, one of the main characteristics of the historical development of the community of scholarship has been the development of a universal language of inquiry and evidence as the basis in which we all recognize. And we have to disseminate this language toward the general public. And we can also contribute to the fight against misinformation, also by providing specialized teaching and education to our students. I think that, for example, what we have done has been insisting in introductory courses on the law and ethics of the digital society. On the one hand, to convince the people that there are specific responsibilities in using the new technological instruments, and also by providing an introduction of what might be the remedies afforded also by the law and not just by ethics, as against the violation of the basic values against which, on the basis of which our community is based. Secondly, I think that we should go on by publishing accessible and engaging research findings, hosting public lectures and debates, and using social media platforms to reach a wider audience, as it has been in the last times. Encouraging scholars in particular to engage with the public and the media can also help in providing expert insights that counteract false narratives and promote a more informed discourse.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts about how to approach in a structured manner and providing that scope and opportunity for all involved in this endeavor. Thank you very much, Professor Resta. Over to you, Mr. Malkani. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gupta. And just like some of my co-panelists, I'd also like to respond to this very important question with the help of a couple of examples. And let me begin just by connecting with the point I made in my brief introduction, which is, as the Association of Commonwealth Universities, it's very much our mandate and our job to improve understanding of different cultures and different societies by bringing people together. And as I said, we do this through our events, through our networks and communities, through our grants and fellowships. So I want to take an example of a series of programs we used to run until not very long ago, known as the ACU summer schools. And these programs used to bring together, and for several years brought together, young leaders from across the world, across the Commonwealth, to a particular Commonwealth country at a particular host university. And these summer schools have been run on a range of different themes, right from what the impact of pandemics on cities will be, to topics like the one we ran last year, which was on the theme of truth and reconciliation. And this particular summer school 2023 was hosted by Stellenbosch University in South Africa, and basically focused on aspects to do with apartheid, as well as transnational justice, and provided a fascinating opportunity for students from across the Commonwealth, finally undergraduate students, as well as first-year postgraduate students, were immersed in this fascinating opportunity to learn about the political, social, as well as economic forces that shaped 28th century South African politics, including, as I said, apartheid, came together with their peers and had a range of different lectures as well as group discussions. So one way really of propagating peace and bringing bringing communities together is really through developing programs that help people to understand before they misunderstand. So that's one example. Another is again, in the interest of time, I'll be brief, but another is through our very robust grants program that I also alluded to earlier. So I'll give one example of a senior lecturer in anthropology at BRAC University in Bangladesh. BRAC University are one of our members. And this particular senior lecturer, somebody called Mr. Muhammad Abdul Rakib, he applied for and was awarded one of what we call the ACU's Peace and Reconciliation grants to support a project and to support some research that he does, which investigates how the victims of police violence and their family members navigate the legal terrain in Bangladesh. So as you can see, very deep, important societal matters. And through this project, Muhammad Abdul Rakib is aiming to study the ordinary processes of adjudication in which the victims of police violence and their families submit defense, organize collective protests, and forge moral injunctions. So it's really, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to communicate really is the work of a network like ours is to provide very brilliant individuals, whether they're students, whether they're academics, whether they're professional services staff within universities, the tools that they may need to aid that community building or aid that unifying process and aim that they're hoping to achieve.
Thank you, Mr. Malkani. Thank you for raising, the importance of bringing in students and ensuring international collaboration in that. And of course, we already have started receiving questions from our audience, but I'll just hold on to them for a minute and let me position, my next question to what Mr. Malkani was saying a little bit. So if I may ask this question now, scholars, regardless of their cultural backgrounds, share a common language rooted in academic pursuits. How can this common language be harnessed to promote intercultural dialogue, understanding, and collaborative research that contributes to global peace? Can you share examples where scholars from diverse backgrounds collaborated successfully? I think this is extremely important because we're talking about interdisciplinary studies, we're talking about international collaborations, we're talking about students' engagement. So I position my question, and if I may follow the same order, and start with Professor KUZMAROV. Thank you.
So thank you. I think this is one of those questions that perhaps is interestingly addressed from the Canadian perspective, because we really have such a diverse and multicultural society in which people live and work every day as part of their daily lives, as well as, of course, the intellectual collaborations that we foster both inside and outside of Canada. So to give you just a couple of specific examples, one, I think I would return to the interdisciplinarity that we were talking about before, which is that one of the strengths that we have at Carleton is we don't look at problems through the lens of a single discipline. And I'll give you an example, one which is very current in challenges, which is cybersecurity. And we have an expert at Carleton, Dr. Alex Wilner, who works in our Norman Patterson School of International Affairs, who's a leading world expert in deterrence theory. But he's now applying his expertise to cyberspace and running a program called the Masters of Infrastructure Protection. And what that program is designed to do is to foster knowledge scholarship amongst people who are trained as engineers, who understand the actual infrastructure challenges from the technical side in the policy challenges of protecting infrastructure through the lens of cybersecurity. And so it's things like that that both foster the sort of interdisciplinary dialogue as well as naturally the cross-sectoral dialogue. Specifically to intercultural dialogue, we like to think of Carleton both on and off campus as a microcosm, and I think that word was used before, of both our society, and we try to make it reflective of that. We have active hiring policies, for example, to increase the number of Indigenous faculty members so that we represent our Indigenous populations more fulsomely and access the knowledge and expertise that they bring from their worldview onto campuses. As well, we also have, global talent programs where we're looking to recruit the best and the brightest from around the world. But we also then bring the world onto campus. One of the benefits of being in a G7 capital is that we all the time are hosting events from various embassies or in conjunction with various partners around the city and the world to bring the world onto campus as well. Because we recognize that one of the things that we have in Canada is a very diverse population that comes onto campus, but oftentimes we don't express that diversity through our campus activities. And so we have over 230 student clubs, for example, right now that represent just about any both interests, but also cultural or socio-ethnic background that wants to be represented. But to give you a specific example, we recently hosted a poster exhibit from the Embassy of Chile to examine Canada's solidarity with Chile in the aftermath of their coup d'etat in 1973. It was a poster exhibit as well as a reception, and the exhibit was put up in our library, so everybody got to see this. And it was both a historical and cultural study of Canada's role in this specific time in Chile's history, hosted by the Chilean embassy. So those are the types of things we do to foster those dialogues on campus. We also have robust protections both around academic freedom, but also freedom of expression that we hold to very dearly as part of our engagement. So that means that both our professors, as part of their collective agreement, have the right to teach and study in areas that are meaningful to them without interference. But conversely, everyone on campus has the right to access those speech protections. So I think maybe I'll stop there and leave it to my other colleagues to pick up the mantle, but those are some of the ways that I think we address your question.
Thank you so very much for sharing all the examples. Now, if I may request Mr. Riley. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I guess I wanted to look at this particular question through a couple of lenses. And the first one of those is around the use of international networks to basically enhance our reach, to actually promote collaboration. And I guess what I'm looking at is the success of some of those networks, which shows that there is a common language that can be harnessed and it can promote intercultural dialogue. So we are seeing this actually happening. It is quite active. The example I wanted to use is a relatively new network of and it's quite a small network of 8 universities called the Strategic Alliance of Catholic Research Universities. The alliance consists of ACU. It consists of the Catholic University of Portugal, Catholic University of Chile, Catholic University of Rio, Pontifical Catholic University of Rio, Ramon Llull University out of Barcelona, and Sofia University out of Japan, as well as Sacro Cuore University out of Milan. So, and I think I mentioned Boston College, hopefully. So it's a relatively new network. It's existed for basically 2.5 years. It really started during COVID. But the network itself is very much focused on driving and supporting research collaboration, and driving and supporting that research collaboration across a range of themes which are agreed by the governing board and by by SACRU's executive team as well. So, for example, we have a group that looks specifically at vulnerability and healthcare. So it's looking at which is obviously a huge topic and of significance to everybody. We've got another one that's looking at Laudato Si and the Sustainability Development Goals. It's entitled The Common Home and Social Justice. So it's looking at environmental issues, but it's looking at all of the SDGs, and it's looking at all of the other elements that are aligned with that. We also have another working group that's looking specifically at artificial intelligence agency and the human person. And that particular group has been very active. They've got publications under their belt. We held a very successful seminar in Milan last year, which involves quite a number of scholars, around about 100 scholars from across the network, all speaking across a range of different disciplines, from law to media and communications, to environmental science, to computer science, you name it. It was incorporated into it through the lens of artificial intelligence, both the good and the bad. How do we leverage it? How do we use it? How do we use it constructively? What are the threats that there are to humanity that could be derived from the flowing out of artificial intelligence? And we also look at quite a practical area, and that's looking at, how do we apply our knowledge to nourishing the planet? In other words, it's around food safety, agriculture, all of those elements, but looking at it very much through the lens of the human person and the role that we have to take. So I think that's one really good example. The contemporary humanism example that I used earlier just shows you how you can cut across borders and how you can actually encourage that level of collaboration relatively early in researchers' careers as well. So I think that those are, I guess, some of the examples I could draw on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Riley, for sharing such important examples, and also, telling us about the importance of creating that network of universities who can work together on extremely important areas. Now, if I may request Professor RESTA for his comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I will just provide a few examples of uses of transnational networks to leverage important issues that might contribute to the promotion of the rights of the vulnerable people and generally global peace and prosperity. We started in this field in the last years, many projects, in particular in the law department, and we have some of them that deal with international human rights, with legal scholars from diverse cultural backgrounds who work together to address global human rights issues. We opened up several law clinics, in particular one in immigration law, one on human rights, and one of the prisoners' rights, which is a very important issue, given that the prisons are unfortunately characterized by a wide presence of foreigners in Italy, and therefore having a legal clinic with a diverse background of scholars might provide important venues for inclusion of these people. We have started partnership in environmental law research using legal experts from various countries of the developed world and the less developed to bridge and bring about legal frameworks for combating climate change. We have a very important transnational summer school, which was also financed by the Carnegie Foundation in last years, on the issue of non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. And we have interesting transnational PhD programs which deals specifically with the governance of digital technologies across the geopolitical blocks, so to foster a language of co-supervision and co-control of the use of these important technologies. So I think all these initiatives not only contribute to the development of a cohesive body of transnational and international law, but may also facilitate a deeper understanding and respect for the diverse legal traditions, which are cultures from all over the world, as well as practices around the world, fostering a global community of legal scholars committing to promoting peace and justice through the rule of law. And we have many other examples of what I just want to stop here and not to take too much time.
Thank you very much for sharing those information. I think it's extremely important, the point that you raised about the clinical programs and the clinical courses where students and faculty members get to know how law operates in practice. Thank you so very much, Professor RESTA. Over to you, Mr. MALKANI.
Thank you, Professor Gupta. And my response to this question will also come in the form of of an example of quite an interesting program that we ran that was being birthed when the pandemic was at its absolute and very peak, but was actually implemented a little later, whilst the pandemic was still being considered a pandemic, but the situation had eased considerably. And this is an initiative known as the Commonwealth Virtual Exchange, which actually brought together 40 undergraduate students from 10 universities across 5 countries that participated in this program that ran over an 8-week period in 2022. The program was focused on teaching these students to address global challenges through intercultural collaboration. So exactly what we're discussing here today. We designed the program such that weeks 1 to 7 were run online, but week 8 we were able to bring the students together not as a whole cohort, but again because of the time that this was taking place in, the 8th and final week saw students come together on their own campuses, and indeed OP Jindal was part of this initiative as well, and we were privileged to have your students participate also. Now, what I wanted to highlight here is that the students that were selected for this program from each of these universities were those that would typically be underrepresented in international higher education. And therefore, we had a strong widening participation element, and universities made selections based on this main criterion. To give you very quickly some facets of the program, we had students working together in mixed groups to come together, to come up together with brilliant entrepreneurial ideas with the potential to take off in real life. So, for example, some of the business ideas that came out were an app to help empower women with better financial awareness, which is important in certain cultural contexts. We had another idea which was an enterprise called Dazzle, which was a cosmetic brand built with ethical labor and cruelty-free testing. And finally, we had another example, which was an enterprise called Scan Sustainably, which was a QR code for consumer packaging linking to recycling information of where those packages came from. So lots of interesting endeavors came from the undergraduate students that participated in this program. And when we evaluated the program, we found that 96% of participating students said that the program increased their desire to work towards the achievement of the SDGs. 96% agreed that participating improved their communication skills, their knowledge about the SDGs and virtual teamwork. And 100% of the participating universities said that they felt connected to an international community of universities as a result of their participation. So this is an example I wanted to share in some sense in response to this very pertinent question you've posed.
No, I think it is extremely important, Mr. Malkani, what you have said is the role of students and how students position themselves in this entire ecosystem, which brings me to the first question from the audience, which is again similar to what you have said right now. And I read, how can universities actively involve students in global initiatives to promote peace and prosperity? So, the floor is open. So, whoever would like to, should I follow the same order? Maybe I'll follow the same order. Professor KUZMAROV.
Thank you. So there's a few ways that we would look at this, I think, at Carleton. One is, and I think we hit all different levels of this. One is involving our undergraduate students, national or international students, in research projects. We have specific awards to engage undergraduate students in our core research. So they're in the labs, they're helping to support the research. We also engage them through a unique program in course development, where professors can hire a student, an undergraduate student, again, domestic or international student, to help a professor prepare a course, actually. And that gives them great insight into sort of the pedagogical methods that professors are using, as well as giving the professors great feedback on what they're doing and whether or not it actually is real world, or whether, they're sort of missing expectations. So that's on the academic side. I think we do work really hard to engage our students. But then we also work very hard to give them experiences, and those can be of two different kinds. Much like what Mr. Malkani was talking about, during the pandemic, we run virtual exchanges, but we have exchange agreements with, I would say, over 150 countries right now. So we offer our students a myriad of international experiences depending on their interests and ability. But we also recognize that as a public university, and all universities in Ontario and Canada more broadly, where we're looking at, are largely, mostly for the most part, public. We also have a public access mandate. In other words, we're here to serve the public in Canada as well as internationally. And so from that angle, what we offer is also a myriad of experiences to ensure that students from underserved communities, as you were talking about, Dr. Malkani, have access to international experiences and wider experiences that they may not. So for example, we participate in a program through our funding agency, MyTax, that allows students to go on short or medium-term mobility programs. And that program in particular requires a certain number of students be differently abled, and a certain number of students come from underserved backgrounds, whether that's indigeneity or other in the Canadian context, or other underserved backgrounds. Plus, we also have additional scholarships that we run internally for all of our students who are required to go on exchanges, or we offer them a virtual exchange or course option, understanding that for some people, work or family responsibilities mean that they wouldn't necessarily be able to travel to that international experience, but that they want that international and should have that international experience. The other thing that we do is most of our students have access through their programming to co-op programming, where they actually can either work for, and they can work for a semester, and that can be either domestically or internationally. We offer international options as well for our co-op students, although, most of them, of course, do choose to stay locally for a variety of reasons. But for those that are interested in international business experience, particularly, we offer that as well.
Thank you very much for sharing a comprehensive note of how students are engaged at your university. Just for the sake of I've been warned that 6 minutes is left, or about 3 minutes now. So I would have 1 minute for each speaker, and if you would sort of limit your response within a minute, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, I'll head off then, Professor Gupta. Very quickly, I guess I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that we do at ACU. 25% of our undergraduate students have an international experience. That's an actual international experience. That's not including virtual international experiences as well. So by the time they graduate, a significant proportion have engaged in that. One of the reasons for the high take-up rate is that we actually have an international campus. So we have a campus in Rome. Our students are encouraged to explore the opportunities to study there. They can do short courses, they can do a full semester, they can do an internship. So there's a variety of options that are available for our students to get them over to Rome, and a variety of different opportunities, including community engagement opportunities that are either required in some programs or encouraged in others. The other initiative I wanted to highlight is an Australian government initiative. It's called the New Colombo Plan, which has been very much focused around student mobility in the Asia-Pacific region, which has been hugely successful. And we send significant numbers of our students to countries like Vanuatu, the Solomon Islands, Fiji, Micronesia, etc. So they're going, and Timor-Leste. So they're going in quite large numbers to go and work with communities, to go and experience those communities, the lives of those communities, but also to contribute in a meaningful way to those communities. The idea also, I guess, behind something like the New Colombo Plan is, not to be too cynical, but it is around soft diplomacy as well. So it's utilizing the concept of student mobility to support an agenda for the region and to support engagement with our neighbours and engagement with countries that maybe we're not engaging with, but should be more actively. So I think those sorts of initiatives are really quite critical. Like Carleton as well, we're very committed to inclusion in our programs. So we have a range of financial support products that assist students from different backgrounds in going abroad as well, because it really is quite an expensive undertaking. And many students have to give up work in order to go overseas as well. So there's a double cost for them. So we're very mindful of that. And that's also why short-term mobility programs can also be quite helpful. Also, I guess they're very helpful for students who are in specialist degree programs where there are accreditation requirements that are quite stringent. So short-term programs actually work remarkably well for those students in areas like health, teacher education, etc. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I think final 30 seconds, Professor RESTA and Mr. Malkani. I would give you 20 seconds each, if I may, for your final comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that we have, it's very important to include students, and we have a double strategy. The first one is fostering international exchanges through scholarship. We are the first Italian university for the number of international agreements. The second one, not least important, is internationalization at home, providing a curriculum which is taught in various languages and which touches upon global issues, so as to provide the students the keys to understand what's going on in the world and participate actively.
Thank you, Professor RESTA. Malkani, final 30 seconds to you, sir. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Professor Gupta. So I'll keep it really brief and say to those listening, please have a look at two very interesting programs that we run. One is the Queen Elizabeth Commonwealth Scholarships, which enable students in Commonwealth countries that want to pursue a 2-year master's program in a low or middle income Commonwealth country. And another is an exciting program focused on marine areas known as the Ocean Country Partnership Program that is available to students in a range of different countries. So I'll stop there in the interest of time, but I've given you the names of both these programs.
Thank you so very much. Thank you to all speakers and panelists, and thank you to all the participants, Professor KUZMAROV, Mr. Riley, Professor RESTA, and Mr. Malkani. Of course, we have just run out of time, but I think the discussions can go on for a very long time. Thank you again for your contribution, and have a good night ahead. I know it's very early morning for Mr. Riley. So thank you again to everybody who joined, regardless of the time zone they're in. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone.